out there, catch more fish.
Hey guys, Mike here from BinyaOutDoors. I have a special guest in here. I'm going to let him introduce himself, but if you guys don't know who he is, you definitely should. Mikey Balzz is in the house. I'm going to have him tell his story about how he started doing YouTube, and then we're just going to talk fishing.
Nice. What's going on, guys? I'm Mike. I'll be Mike 2 on this live stream. How about that, dude? So I have a YouTube channel, Mikey Balzz Fishing on YouTube. You can jump on there and check it out if you want, or just type Mikey Balzz into Google, and all my platforms come up: Instagram, TikTok, all that shenanigans. I make what I consider kind of grassroots kind of video content. But of course, all about fishing, can include my dog who's laying down there. But I love to fish, and it's one of the few things that really puts a grin on my face and makes me giggle. So I made videos about it many, many years ago. And interestingly enough, it was kind of before YouTube was cool. Like, I should put on my hipster glasses for this because, I was doing YouTube before it was cool, bro. But, originally my concept with making content was a little different. Like, I didn't want to be famous. I didn't want to make money, even, to be perfectly honest with you. My goal was, I was sort of at that transition between sort of your old school traditional sort of legacy fishing, print, Bassmaster magazine, watching FLW, the old school tournament stuff on TV, on ESPN, watching Bassmaster, and then sort of the digital sort of environment that we see ourselves in now. And one of the things that always frustrated me is capturing what I was doing fishing and learning from it, because I really didn't have a mentor or a teacher. And I really felt like, and in many ways I was right, we were getting lied to a lot, in those magazines, in that content. It was very templated. It was very generic. And it wasn't honest a lot of times. It was sponsor influenced, and that frustrated me. Like, it's one thing if you lie to somebody, it's one thing if you blatantly go out of your way to lie to somebody, and that's what they were doing. So what I tried to do was basically create fishing logs using video content and post them online, use YouTube as a platform to sort of share those experiences and what I learned. Not that it would apply to everywhere, not that it would apply to everyone, but basically I thought in this greater good concept, if I posted this stuff and other people posted stuff about their fishing, we can all draw from this kind of shared experience and all become better anglers. Not all of it's going to apply to me, not all of it's going to apply to you. But that was kind of the original concept with the channel. It was more of a digital sort of video fishing log. Plus, I hated to write all that shit down, dude. Like, it takes forever to write a fishing log, and it never captures what actually happened. Plus, I'm not going to lie, when I started fishing, catch and release was big, but it's not as sort of normalized as it is now. A lot of guys were still keeping fish. Not that it's bad to keep fish, but having something to sort of take away from that experience on the water, video was kind of a cool thing, because it was a mount, it was a picture, it was the experience all captured in one. So it was a cool deal. And also what didn't hurt is the technology aspect. Now it's very easy to get a little GoPro, to grab your phone and to shoot a TikTok video, an Instagram video. Yeah, it's all at your fingertips. When I jumped in, we were at that very initial transition, and what I would call sort of your consumer electronic video concept was just beginning. So it was really cool, because basically I could buy this $300 camera and I had the power of maybe not Hollywood studio level content, but I had the power of video content that could compare with a lot of the fishing shows and the general sort of fishing content that was out there on national networks and that. And then from there, it kind of went in a lot of different directions. And now, I try to make vloggy videos. I try to make instructional stuff. I try to go out and have a good time, capture it, and share that experience across a variety of platforms.
It's funny because that's kind of how I discovered. So I actually started YouTubing by record. So my parents do king salmon fishing on Lake Ontario.
Okay.
They have the big boat. And my dad always wanted to, and it kind of goes right with what you were saying. My dad always tried to describe to his friends that didn't go there what it was like to catch a king salmon.
Exactly.
And it was like, you're just silently waiting for a pole to go off, and then it's utter chaos for half an hour, because you literally fight these things for a half an hour because they're just monsters.
Right.
And then you go back to fishing. But it's like, you can't really tell how the waves are hard to balance your boat and fight and do all the stuff. So I ended up buying literally these knockoff $20 GoPros off Amazon
Yep.
and mounted them up in the corners of the boat, ran them off of like big memory cards with battery banks, and just edited a video for Christmas. That's literally where my YouTube
Yeah,
started
yeah.
and I actually had so much fun editing, which is something that most people like get confused on. I actually have more fun editing sometimes than I do the fishing
I
because
might have a job for you, dude.
I actually really like it. It's funny because my wife gets really annoyed because I'll be like, check this transition out. Look, when I casted, it switched scenes. And she's like, and I'm like, I'd spend an hour on that. Like, it's like, sometimes it got fun. And then I literally started fishing out of a kayak because my mom convinced my dad to get kayaks for exercise.
That's cool, though.
And like, he brought a kayak camping and we went out and caught like, we thought they were monsters at the time. They were
Right.
probably 2-pounders. But we had been catching bluegill on the bank all
Yeah.
day. So when you catch 6-inch bluegill and you hook into a 3-pound largemouth in a
Yeah.
kayak, totally different experience. So then I just started strapping a GoPro on and then started like kind of going from there. But it's funny because, like you said, the log thing, you don't realize you catch a fish and you're like, I caught that fish on a black and blue Senko.
Yeah.
And then you watch the video back and you're like, that was a fucking June bug
Yeah.
Texas rig.
Or something that you did with it. Like for me, especially with all the flipping, it's like, and it's almost, this is a terrible like analogy, but it's almost like trauma, like, yeah. So you remember everything afterwards, where it's like, oh my God. But like, if they put up a police lineup and said, hey, what did you do with the bait? Who was the person that grabbed the bait before you did? You have no idea. And like,
it's funny too, because you think you hit your spot and sometimes you didn't.
Exactly, dude.
Like, I'll be like, oh, I was fishing that tree.
Stuff.
I was fishing that tree. That's where I was casting. I missed the tree by 3 feet because the wind took my bait, but I just had casted, didn't think about it. And like you said, it's something as simple as I've actually learned how to catch fish from myself almost as much because you, like you said, you'll be like, stop, itch your nose.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, it wasn't my constant retrieve that was the thing.
Yep.
It was that pause.
Yep.
That caused that fish to hit. Like, you don't realize that stuff. So yeah, it's honestly entertaining sometimes to go back and watch it too, because you realize stuff that you screwed up on too.
Yeah.
Like, I know I've gone back and been like, why the fuck didn't I fish that dock?
Yeah. You become your own worst critic, dude.
It's bad. And the thing is, I was highly competitive in high school. Like, I played baseball and I was like an athlete. And then I got out of high school and ended up getting into like co-ed softball. I needed something to like satisfy that competition.
Mm-hmm.
And fishing, not even just tournament fishing, but like the mental game of fishing. Like, just being like, I want to catch a fish on this body of water, and then having to like basically compete with yourself to make that happen
100%.
was what kind of drove me, like some of the stuff I've seen you do. Like, literally sometimes you go into a video and you're like, yeah, we're gonna do this, and then halfway through you're like, yeah, that didn't fucking work, we're doing this. Like,
dude, if I put up all my videos, half of them would be like that. Like, but that's what's kind of cool, because maybe it's like a millennial perspective, but there's certain sort of generic bars that can be set, like, tournament fishing, best 5 fish, But I think one of the things that's happened that's opened up fishing a lot is the ability to sort of independently set those baselines and create your own, for lack of a better word, like challenges or goals. And that's a more accepted sort of, I don't know, but vocabulary now. It just, people are more okay with that. And that's kind of where I'm at, because yes, you want to be challenged from outside and put yourself in situations where maybe you're not comfortable, or maybe you're excelling in a sort of more community oriented way. But at the same time, a lot of times I want to learn something, and that learning process is more of an independent or an intrinsic thing. So it's buying a bait off a tackle warehouse, grabbing a monster bass box, and like going out and saying, I haven't caught shit ever off of X, Y, and Z. I want to see how it works, how I do it, and what's going to define a win for me today is catching 2 fish, 1 off of each of these baits, something like that. And I like that. And that's why I think like I'm into the video stuff, because you make stuff, you make videos, a huge challenge that people see the end product which might
Yeah.
be all buttery and smooth and lovely.
Yep.
But the process of going out and saying, I have 8 hours, this is the one day I have this week, I need to shoot a video because I need this content to put up, and setting up that parameter, it's not all unicorns and dreams, dude.
No,
Like it's
not at all.
definitely challenging and has its own sort of set of circumstances to create that story and sort of render that experience to a viewer, you know?
I think that's what it is for me, is the story. Like, I'm learning more. When I started, it was just like everybody kind of starts, to be honest, most people's early YouTube is all the same. It's a chest cam. It's you trying to talk while you're fishing, but you don't have that mental like switch to be like, okay, I need to make a video. So if I'm not going to catch fish, I need to talk about what I'm doing so people
Yep.
will watch this thing. And and then you go through this like progression, and now I'm at a point where, and I'm not nearly like, I'm a 150 subscriber channel. Like, I'm not like at that level yet, but I'm at that point where my friends that go fishing with me, I have to warn them before they come with me, because I'm like, you need to understand, once I get in my kayak, once I get in my boat, when I hit play on that camera, I'm in YouTube mode. So like it'll be completely silent. We'll be fishing in my boat, and my wife, to her credit, has gotten used to it. But literally we'll be sitting there completely silent, cast reel, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, "Hey guys, Mike here from BinyaOutDoors. Today we're gonna fish some crankbaits." And I just like go into
All
this
these people
mode.
are looking like, who
And
is this
people are
guy?
like, I've literally had to redo videos 4 or 5 times because people across the lake are going, "What?" And I'm like, "Not you." They're like, "I'm sorry, I can't hear you." And I'm like,
I've never had that happen, but I look
dude,
forward to that experience.
it's the funniest thing. And it's weird here in Vermont because there's not a lot of content creators. There's actually, I'm learning, there's a lot of content creators here, but we're all small. We're all sub 500, sub 1,000 subscribers. And when you run across, like when you go into a boat ramp, and I can imagine what it's like for you because you have like the big boat. Like I have a tracker, but it's like not set up. When I put a camera on
Yeah.
the back of my kayak, I draw 12-year-olds like I'm selling ice cream.
Really?
Like I've literally had kids run up to me and go, "Oh my god!" I actually literally went out and got business cards for my like 100 subscriber YouTube channel because I'm like, "Yeah, here, check it out. Go watch the videos. It's something I do for fun. It's a hobby." But I've had people like run up to me in my kayak because here it's a spectacle to watch me come out with. Granted, I'm ridiculous. I'm in an Old Town 106 with 8 rods, 2 cameras, lights. Like I'm literally going out like I'm in a Hobie BOS to fish a local pond.
Right.
But it's just my mentality. It's how I fish because I fish every place like it's a tournament. It's just my mentality.
Yeah.
But like I get this like group of people that will like watch me, and then but the thing is no one really knows it. So when you're out on the water, you get a lot of good old boys and John boats that don't like technology and are actually out there to avoid technology. And here I am floating around in a kayak going, "So when you work a square bill, what you do?" And they're like, "Who the fuck is he talking to?" Because they have no idea I'm rolling a camera.
Yeah.
So they see me off at a distance, and I'm like, "Yeah, this is a slobber knocker. It's a new jig from Berkeley." And I'm like talking about stuff in front of my camera, and they're like, "Who the fuck is this guy? And why is he?" So I get the strangest looks. And actually, the question I get all the time, which I'm sure, like bass boat, I used to get it a little bit less, but my kayak, I go, "Is it legal to have that many rods in your boat?" And I'm like, "I'd fit fucking 10 more if I could find a spot to put them." Like,
I've never been asked that.
I
But
fish 8
I have
rods
been
on a
pulled over for
kayak, but
something like that.
have you? That's funny.
Well, so back in the day when I didn't have a boat, I was at University of Florida, and they had like a lake where you could rent a John boat. And so I had a 49cc scooter and a trolling motor, like a clamp-on vice like trolling motor. So I put a 12 volt, and I had a 49cc scooter, so I put a 12 volt at my feet, and I made this little rack so I could put like 10 rods shooting up, and then I chained the trolling motor behind me, dude, to the thing.
Dude.
I blew that scooter up like 6 or 7 times. But the point being is, there was this one freaking state trooper. And I don't know if he was being like a dick or he had a trainee with him. So I think he was just kind of flexing a little. but he pulled my ass over, dude. And he said it was for my light, but he pulled me over because he thought I robbed somebody's garage. It was like somebody's garage, and I was making like a high speed, get 49cc scooter with a 12 volt at your feet. Dude, you're maxing out at 39.5 miles an hour,
Yeah.
dude. So my high speed
And holding on while you're doing it because of all the
it
weight
was
distribution.
not happening, dude. So like he pulled my ass over for that, which was
That's
amusing.
funny.
And this was before, like back then I was just shooting like camera in the boat. I swear to God, I wish I would have got it on video because like that would have been like total viral gold and highly amusing because he was pretty nice about it, but like I could tell he was, you know, picking me out, and it would have been fun to play around with him a little bit.
That sounds like I've never done the scooter thing, but that's really how I started. Like my dad was a trout salmon fisherman, like always did like the deep sea trolling style fishing. And I really just got into like bank fishing for a long time, and I would just do the whole bicycle backpack. Throw a couple broke down spinning rods in a backpack, go to the local convenience store, buy night crawlers, and just go try to catch, fish off the bank. And it was actually a pretty good system because what would happen is I would fish so late that my parents would get worried and come pick me up. Because I live like 10 miles from the lake, so it was a haul to get there, and then I would just literally, and then we actually found a 4-wheeler trail that was behind my parents' house that connected to the lake. So then we would literally go to this like hill and then fucking climb down this like 45-degree angle, like mountain to this dock that my parents mowed their lawn, and I knew when they were up because they were from Connecticut and they never came to Vermont. So then we would walk down there and fish their dock and then walk back up the hill and take the 4-wheeler back out. But it was like, it was just that grassroots fishing stuff that I would get into. But that's the thing is my parents, even to this day, I'm 36 years old and my mom she'll know I fish weekends, and she'll call me or text me at dark and be like, "Are you on shore?" And I'm like, "No, I'm still fucking fishing. The fish are biting."
Dude, woman, come on now.
Yeah, like my wife's at the point now where like she pretty much has like like I give her a waypoint to the boat ramp.
Yeah.
And she knows that like if I'm not home by like 10 o'clock, it's a problem. But other than that, I'll be coming. And of course, I'm ridiculous. So I've got 3 of those, like, those LED courtesy lights they put in boats. I put those. So I redneck engineer everything. So I have a Milwaukee tool crate with PVC rod holders, so I can have all these rods because I have an Old Town, so I don't have that horizontal rod storage like the Hobies have. So I have 6 PVC pipes zip tied to a tool crate, and then I have those courtesy lights. I have 3 of those wired onto the PVC so that it will light me up green, so people don't run me over in my kayak when I'm fishing in the dark.
That's a big deal, dude.
And it's not like legal as far as like the green and red. It's just literally green LEDs, and it's just because I like green. And honestly, it doesn't screw with your night vision as bad as like the white ones, and the bugs don't come to the green.
No. And it's safe though too. Like, and
you can see it.
You live on both ends of the spectrum. I don't kayak fish at all. Like I've paddled around in kayaks, and people are probably going to hate on me for this, but one of the biggest challenges that I've been in slower boats for a majority of the time I've ever fished. Like my old 03 Triton could do like 55 in that, but it's hard to see you guys. And in the end, I am going fast, and that falls on me to be responsible for the speed. But it sure as hell helps when you got a light up or like a flag or something that says, "Hey, I'm right here." Because the other thing too is I try to be like as courtesy oriented as I can with like all boats, but especially the kayaks. Because dude, I used to fish some lakes in a little like John boat, and dude, these freaking 30-foot yacht thingers would come by and literally put water over my front. And I don't want to do that to somebody, but if I don't know you're there, it's really hard to not do that to somebody. So that's pretty cool, dude.
It's funny how like Old Town, like mine's like the wrong color. Like I like the color of my kayak, but it's like forest green and black.
Yeah, you blend right into the water.
Like I'm fucking so blended in that I actually literally wear like lime green, orange, like you see my hat's got green on it. Like I'm literally, and like I said, I've literally driven around in my kayak because it's so small though. It's again, it's funny because I fish around. There's this one local lake near me that has like camps all on it, and people literally live there. Like that's just where they live, and they just have a dock and everything. And the first time I used those lights, I was fishing in this little bay area. It's actually perfect because right outside the access, it's all pads on one side and all milfoil on the other side. And
Nice.
then the middle is open because of the boat traffic, kind of kills all the grass. So it's like the perfect, you get in there, you hit there when the sun comes down,
Yeah.
and it's, you know, frogs and
Yeah.
topwaters, and you can just, and it's bullfrogs for days in there.
Yeah.
So it's like the perfect place to get topwater footage and do everything. And I turned those lights on, and I heard one of the camps go, "What the fuck is that?" And literally all I hear is, "Honey, what the fuck is that?" And then there's like, Bill, what the fuck's that green shit out there? Like I think they seriously thought there was fucking aliens like floating in the middle of the lake. And then like I just turned them off and went to the ramp because the ramp is near this camp.
Right.
So like I literally like kind of snuck out of there because I was like, I don't really want to have a confrontation with these homeowners trying to kill aliens thinking there's something fucking floating in the lake. Like, so, but I'm ridiculous like that because I want to
They would
fish.
know. I think that's so funny off topic shit, but like people have no idea how far your voice travels on the water.
Dude, it's
and especially if
insane.
there's wind, dude. You can hear some naughty ass conversations or somebody like when we're live fishing, if they're talking shit, like dude, like I heard every word you said, and you're a half mile away from me. The wind's like perfect. It's pushing it right towards me, bro.
Yeah,
Like,
I put a short out the other day. I was sitting, you couldn't see him, but I was sitting in that same bay, and I just heard this guy going, get. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I couldn't figure out where the sound was coming from. And finally, I followed the sound. This dude was herding geese off his beach.
Oh my god!
Because they kept shitting on his beach.
Yeah.
But he was sitting in his house. I could see his fucking TV on through the sliding glass window. And anytime a bird of any kind walked up on his beach, he'd run out fucking in his underwear and chase these geese off his beach. But the whole time I'm just hearing, get, come on, get. Wow. And I'm like, but yeah, like you said, I was fucking 100, 200 yards away from this guy, dude. And I had no idea, but I'm like, I got to figure out what the fuck this is because it sounds funny. And I just went over, and then I was like literally, and then I ended up like putting it up as a short because I was just like, this guy's chasing geese. Like, and that's, I think, the thing that I learned being a content creator is it's not the fishing that gives you the best content sometimes. Sometimes it's like the weird shit that happens.
That's it. So, and that's an interesting point because, in my opinion, the fishing is the best content.
Right.
But according to the algorithm, according to the way things get ranked and the way clickbait works, fishing is not the best.
No, and that's
so it's kind of there is a lot of, and that creates a lot of strain. It's funny too because like I posted a video today and I thought it was really cool. We went to a fishing expo.
I watched it
like
earlier,
mingled with a bunch of people. YouTube hates it. Like it literally is getting disseminated nowhere. It's getting like no views. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? Like what was, and I'm like, well, you know, it's not like kitschy enough. It's not like naughty enough. It's not controversial.
You didn't start it with $100 challenge. And then
or I'm going to steal lures from every vendor in this place, you know, something like that. But I mean, it is what it is, dude.
It's funny. Some of the funniest stuff. That's actually the funny part is I kind of recently discovered shorts. Yeah. And it was mostly because I have a friend who's from Canada. And actually, it was kind of funny because he made me feel old as fuck. But I was like, hey, I'm having Mikey on this week. I'm like, you should check out his channel. And he's like, dude, he's like an OG. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, dude, I like his content. But then I was like watching a bunch of your stuff, like kind of following through with him. Like he was watching it, telling me videos that he liked and stuff. And that's one of the things I realized is like you are more like, you don't trend. Like you do the titles and the stuff that you got to do to get the views, but you're not like running through Walmart buying the fucking $5 lure. That you're not trying to take that fucking spider and run out and catch a fish and do a big video.
I'm not cool, but you know, and here's the deal though. I always like respond to stuff like that with a grain of salt. Like it works, and the guys who do it very well. There was a point when I was making videos when I explored trying to do that, and it ended very abruptly with me realizing the fact that I'm not good at this. I can't fake it. And you know, that's not a tag against anybody else, but like, you know, you gotta understand what you're good at and you ride that. and I'm not good at that shit, and it
Yep.
doesn't fit me. It doesn't feel right. So like, I can't do that. I should do that because I'd really like to make a whole bunch of shit ton of money and just go fishing and
Yeah.
stuff. But
Yeah.
maybe there'll be another way at some point. I will tell you this: the view counts. So YouTube throttled a bunch of stuff with like the catch and cook and the hunting stuff about 3 years ago, and it sucked because it really it hurt the ability for smaller channels like yours, and I consider my channel smaller. It hurt us both in the sense of like that exponential growth is
Right.
far more rare now. But what I did notice about that change is it also made guys who are and guys and gals, you know, anybody, trans, whatever, fucking, you know, it made anyone who's creating sort of like genuine, credible content. They might not get like a 200,000 views, but there was definitely like a shift in viewership where there was more consistent viewership to sort of some of that instructional stuff, the more genuine content. You'll still have your viral stuff that guys are doing, but it seemed like things made a bit of a change. But it was annoying because it really shut down a lot of that viral dissemination, at least for more grassroots, subject specific oriented kind of channels.
See, for me too, it's like, and I'm going to say this, and I'm probably going to screw myself out of ever getting a sponsorship or anything like that. But for me, it's like, I would rather have 1,000 subscribers, that 50 of which watch my lives, and those 1,000 subscribers, 30% of them watch my videos every time I put a video out, than 50,000. Because I want to build like a community that I educate more than people that are just clicking on it because they liked one video that was gimmicky. Like, if that makes sense. Like, I would rather have a community of people that, like, I honestly want to have a channel, like, not even trying to like fanboy, but like, I want to have a channel like yours or Alex Rudd's where like, not only do you have a channel and you educate, and like when I want to go find how to catch bass deep or how to catch bass in certain conditions, I'm going to watch your video over somebody else's because I know they're not going to try to sell me a bait that I don't want. They're going to just teach me the technique, but also like, you guys are approachable. Like, that's the one thing about the YouTube space that I've learned is like, there is some guys that are just very standoffish. And then there's other guys, like I was going to have Alex on next week, but I was like, I messaged him. He didn't even make the connection. And I messaged him. I'm like, dude, I'm not having you on next week because it's classic week. And there's no fucking way with your sponsors and shit, you're going to have time to come on to my, small
I didn't even
channel
think
and shit.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, dude, we'll reschedule that. But it's like the difference is like I could message Alex Rudd on Instagram. I could message you and say, hey, I'm going fishing tomorrow. This is the conditions. What do you think? And you're gonna give me feedback. And
Yeah.
that's kind of my
It's
goal, is to
funny
like
you
build
say
that group.
dude. I didn't know that was because like I don't make a bunch of money off this shit, and like I don't like I know I've built. How do I put it? I know I've built something and it's been somewhat successful, because I'm starting to reap some of those rewards now. But I didn't know it was so elite or what, like I didn't know these guys got like this because like I don't operate like that. And maybe that's my problem. Maybe I need to be more of a dick, dude. That's what I'm doing wrong, huh?
Maybe. That's why you're not making money. Yeah.
Right.
No, it's funny because I've gravitated to like, and don't get me wrong, tactical bassing is very informative, but partly why I started my channel was sometimes those guys are out of touch with like the grassroots guys. Like, they're coming on with like, oh, this is an awesome discount combo. It's a $200, $300 St. Croix with a Shimano Corrado. And I'm like, I've never even seen a Shimano Corrado. Like, I have the most expensive reel I've ever bought was a Tatula, and that's because my dad has a wholesale account that he had from back in the day that I can get him at cost.
Nice move, dude.
But like, that's the most expensive. I was literally rigging up a reel today that was an Abu Garcia Max X spinning rod with a Fluger President spinning reel.
Yep.
Like
$39.99, baby.
OG. Like, some of the biggest fish I've ever caught were on $20 Walmart combos. And that's what I wanted to kind of, being from Vermont, like I said, the thing about Vermont is like, it's a bucket list lake of Champlain, but everywhere else is trout. Fishing Game stocks trout. They don't give a shit about the bass population at all. They just let the bass fend for themselves. They don't stock them. They don't really regulate bass fishing at all. So like, here the bass fishermen are even more niched down than they are in a lot of places. And I'm sure like Florida's kind of like that too, because Florida's more about the salt. Like, there's bass fishing there and that's a huge sport, but salt's also a big influence down there as well. So you have a little bit of competition. Up here, it's like you literally have a lot of places that don't get bass fished.
Yeah.
Because they stock it with trout, and there's the guys. And up here, the big thing is guys will use like paddle boards and fly fish off them.
That's so hipster, dude.
Dude, it is.
And
It is.
wait a second. They drive there in their Subarus, right?
Dude, I saw a guy. Yep. So I didn't even know they made these. Did you know they make like literally kayaks that you could put together?
Actually, I have seen that, dude. Packable kayaks. Yeah, I have.
Weirdest shit I'd ever seen. This lady showed up with her dog and like a fucking fly fishing rod, and she like assembled her kayak on the shore and then went out.
Dude, like 80s.
And then a lot of them have those inflatable fucking paddle
Yeah.
boards that they pull out and they get their fucking air mattress pump out.
That
and then
scares me, dude. Because back in the day, my dad had like a 1979 dinghy, and I would fill that thing up, but I knew it had a hole in it beforehand.
Yeah.
So I was allowed about 2.5 hours before I'm like, dude, like you got to turn it around and be near the boat ramp or you're going down. Like it's a game, dude.
Yeah, those guys, it's amazing to me watching them do it. Like it's just, and they're going for it like they're on shore, and I'm just watching them, and I'm like, I'm gonna fall watching you fucking try to bounce on this thing. Like my buddy bought a big paddleboard. He has a cane Corso that he takes out on his paddleboard with him.
Jesus.
150-pound dog that he takes out on the paddleboard with him, and he just rides around and fishes on it.
I've never fished. I brought a bog out on a paddleboard. I like the paddleboards. They're good exercise, dude. I don't know if I could fish on them. But, you know, that kind of comes back to what we were talking about. I don't know if we were on then, but, like, since COVID, like, it was happening beforehand, but you see it a lot more. There's a lot more diversity in goals and end outcomes for the anglers that we see out there. You know, at first we had kayak as sort of like that sort of subculture, you know, but like it's really expanded, and that's a good thing, because the reality is the more money coming into fishing, no matter what direction it's coming in from, it benefits us all. You know, it does put more pressures on the lakes, but it also puts management in a better position, hopefully. You know, that's always the best, but to manage things better and to put more money into protecting and sort of enhancing the resources that we love, dude.
Yeah, and that's the thing here, is that that's actually what's taken off. Like there's always been the bass fishing, like I said, in Champlain. There's always been the Wednesday nighter and the fucking bass boat tournaments and all that. But up here you're seeing a lot more people roll into the ramp, like you said, with their Subaru with a $200 Sun Dolphin strapped to the roof.
Yeah,
and it's that's actually part of the reason why, again, kind of like why I started my channel, because I realized that, like, it's funny because you have to go really far back into a lot of the YouTube fishing catalogs to learn how to fish. And that's why I literally launched a video Monday that was, this is how you start fishing.
Yeah.
Buy a fucking ugly stick with a GX2 spinning reel for $30 at Walmart. Buy an Eagle snelled hook package. Get a plastic bobber and earthworms and go fishing.
Yep.
Like, because a lot of people, and it's not even like to disparage content creators like you, it's like, are you going to put out a video with fishing with your viewers would be like, what the he was catching fucking 10-pounders on Florida yesterday, and now he's teaching me how to fish with a bobber and earthworm? I'm not going to watch that. So you're going to like, so a lot of old bigger creators don't make the, like, this is how you get into the sport videos. So I decided to try to like niche myself in there, you know?
No, there's a huge audience for that, dude, because there's always someone who like they want to learn. Like they just started yesterday, today, in 2 weeks, you know, like I think there's a big audience for that. And a lot of the viral creators that you see, I think that's something that they've really learned how to tap into. There's a lot of anglers, and I don't think it's a bad thing, but they're not able to fish all the time. So they're into sort of, you know, for lack of a better word, it might be gimmicky, but it's sort of like fun approaches to fishing, you know, like the spider thing. We can laugh a little bit about the spider thing, but at the same time, it's kind of fun and cool and weird, you know? So like, and guys who are just coming into it, like that stuff is appealing, you know, like the basic catching a bunch of brim, a bunch of bluegill, like that's fun, dude. I'm pulling on your dangle, you know? So like, I think there's a lot of room for that. And there's always, that's where your newer audience is always going to be. Like guys like us are like, we know we have a base of knowledge, so we're looking to expand that knowledge more on a granular level. So we're already looking for videos. We're already an audience. We're already viewing
Yep.
stuff. But
Yep.
like those are your new additions, your new viewers, your unique users that are coming in and saying, I never fished before. How do I do this? I had fun when I went out with my uncle, you know?
Yeah, and that's kind of where I started is like I'm just discovering this year because I have a buddy in Indiana that asked me questions, and it's funny because it makes me feel like some sort of bougie elitist because I'm like thinking to myself like I've actually literally asked him to make me a list of questions because he's like how do I start fishing? And I'm like you buy a rod and you go to the lake. And he's like, "Well, what kind of rod do I buy?" I'm like, "A
Yeah.
spinning rod." And he goes, "What's a spinning rod?" And I
Yeah.
realized like I grew up a fisherman's son. So
Yeah.
I grew up knowing how to tie a polymer knot. That was something I learned as a kid.
Yep.
Learning how to cast a spinning rod. I learned that as a kid. But there's a lot of people, especially when COVID hit, that they couldn't do anything else and they had a buddy that fished, so they went with that buddy because it was the only opportunity they had to hang out with someone.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people that discovered the sport because of that event that now are trying to get further into it, but no one's there. Like, they're older, they're adults, and no one in their family fish, so they don't know those things. So I'm trying to I literally started making videos, and honestly, unfortunately, being from the Northeast, my lifelong dream is as pathetic as this is to move more down towards where you are,
I was gonna tell you, you need to
that
move.
way.
Dude.
like
Talk about your
I really want to go south. I honestly I actually literally already told my kids this. I was like, when you guys turn 18, I'm selling my house.
daddy gone, boy.
I'm moving. When I'll stay here long enough for you guys to get through school, and then after that, if you want to live with me, that's fine. But we're going to Tennessee, we're going to
Yeah.
Alabama, we're going to Georgia, we're going somewhere where there's no off season.
Yeah.
Because the mental health thing, that's a thing I think that a lot of people don't touch on with fishing, is you can have the shittiest week and go fishing and catch a fucking dink bass, and that resets.
I don't know.
Being out there, you can clear your head. At the same time, you can also have a good week and have your week get ruined because you break off on a fucking big fish and you're
Yeah.
ready to snap your rod over your leg.
Yeah, that's true, dude.
So
It's very much an emotional game, especially when you're really invested in it, because it's a, what do you call that? Like an out. What's that? With that word? It's an outlet. You know,
Yep.
for a lot of us, and it's interesting because especially you get your weekend and that's what your emotional ending is on Monday based upon how the fishing was, for good or bad. So it's kind of, I don't know. But it's good. I'll be honest with you, man. Fishing has really, for me, it's provided a direction and a construction to things that I do in my life that are well beyond catching a bass on a dangle worm. So there's a lot of tertiary benefits to that process that are lost maybe in the quick 10-minute video, or us just chatting about hey, dude, I was on them. I think there's a lot more to it, especially, and this is gonna make me sound like an old man. I love video games, so don't get me wrong. I'm down with some Call of Duty and all that action, but there's a lot less opportunity for activities that involve patience, the outdoors, and that. And fishing is one of the few. You're not killing something. It's light. So kids can handle it, and that. So it's a good opportunity for them to sort of experience a different template than the standardized one that you can really access anywhere through the web, through a screen and things along those lines.
No, I'm with you on that. It's funny because I grew up. So I was born in '86. So I grew up in that weird limbo of the internet didn't exist when I was younger, and then I spent my whole life outdoors. My kids don't. My kids, it's funny too because I always thought kind of going down a non-fishing rabbit hole, but I always thought my kids would be better at technology, but they're actually worse at technology.
That's terrible.
But you think about it, the reason why, because I work in tech support, I work for a software company.
Really?
So and see, there you go. There's a perfect example of the differences in personalities. I literally logged off of my laptop we make software for banks for imaging, digitizing documents,
Yeah.
check processing. I'm a level 2 support guy that does implementations on servers.
Okay.
And then I throw on my Bass Dash
Yeah.
UV shirt, my fishing hat, and then I go catch largemouth. Like,
Yep.
so that just shows you like how fishing you can do it. You don't have to be a redneck to fish. You
Yeah,
can
there's
even
not a
walk the plank.
demographic restriction.
But
Yeah.
my kids suck at troubleshooting anything because they've never had to. Because
That,
growing up,
that's the deal.
if a computer broke when you were younger, you fixed it. Like you
Yeah.
fucked with it and you either broke it worse and bought a new one when you could save up enough to buy one,
Yeah.
or you tinkered with it until you got it running. Now they just have instant access to Google and they look up the fix and then they don't have to memorize it because it's still in Google the next time it breaks.
You know, and this is where I'll slightly disagree with you. I don't mind that because for me, a lot of what I do, literally the channel is based on Google and not in the sense of YouTube, but like I didn't know how to do any of this shit. But I was personally like motivated because I liked the video content and stuff. So like it was cool because I knew how to sort of implement Google and use it as a tool to do what I wanted to do. And it gave me extra sort of like problem solving mechanism, or it gave me a strategy that works. You're 100% right. If they pulled the plug on the internet, I'd be probably SOL because I don't know how to fix stuff on my boat. I don't know how to do this, but I do have problem solving skills that fit into a contemporary sort of process to address those things. And a lot of that's thanks to that. But yeah, I think that comes back to what we were talking about, where we like fishing provides you that sort of problem solving mechanism. You get out on the boat and something breaks and you're stuck freaking 3 miles from a boat ramp. You got to figure it out. Now, you can use a tool like your phone in that, but I think there's skill sets that are involved with fishing that you can't get from playing a baseball game, playing a football game, a lot of those other activities that are outdoors that provide some of the same basic concepts. They don't have the complexity to teach that fishing does. So I agree with you, but I disagree with you. But that's the way life works, right?
So, question for you: have you fished a lot of cold water areas, or have you pretty much always done like the southern, more? I mean, I call warm water. You know, like because keep in mind the water up here is 39 degrees right now.
Right. So I grew up in Wisconsin, and we
Okay.
would fish up there until like the ice came in. And I've always been an open water guy. Like ice fishing is fun for 2 days, and you drink like 2 cases of freaking Natty Light and go crappie fishing, and it's really fun and it's beautiful with the moon. And then you're like, dude, I'm stuck with 6 more months of this. And so like we go snowboarding and stuff like that. So I did some up there. I knew nothing when I fished up in Wisconsin, but then I moved to Florida. And Florida, in reality, if I'm being 100% honest, you could have 4 rods 365 days of the year and you could catch them. So like that definitely doesn't changes because it's like it's either freaking spawn or summer, the 2 S's. You know? But in Alabama, that's why one of the reasons I actually moved here is because, to be honest with you, I got bored in Florida. I love Florida and I still go down there what totals like 3 months of the year. But the depth and diversity of baits that you can use in a more seasonal environment is good for video. It's good for someone who wants to learn and try things and fail a whole bunch and then every once in a while be successful. So what's cool in Alabama is when I left, we had water temps in the low to mid 40s. So maybe not 39, it's not like one fish day deals, but it's winter. But the one trick is, and this is the difference between true up north fishing and down here, like these fish will bite year round, even if it's frozen. There's a way to catch them. And it doesn't hurt that it's river stuff. And we also have spotted bass and smallmouth because those spots, they'll bite all year round. Sometimes it sucks, but even if it's freaking 39-degree water temp, they'll still bite. So my experience really in the fishing that I do now, when it comes to cold water, has been limited to, I've been in Alabama since 2018. So it's whatever the winters I've had down here. So I've had some experiences, some less wintry than others, but that's pretty much my cold water experience.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I literally, being from the Northeast, I used to hunt. So I used to stop in October. That was the end of fishing for me. And I'm thinking about fishing this weekend because I've been seeing guys catching smallmouth on Champlain, but I'm kind of like starting my cold
Yeah.
water like experience, open water.
Yeah.
Ice fishing is something like you said. Ice fishing is an acquired taste,
Yeah.
and it is way more work than it looks. So anybody that watches ice fishing
100%.
content on YouTube, you
Yeah.
need to realize that dude's dragging 3 sleds out there,
Yeah.
probably pulling 300 pounds worth of equipment and 3 hours of setup to show you him jigging that perch out of that
Not
hole. Like,
including the 7 cases of beer to stay warm, dude. Like
exactly.
that's always important. Very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
ice
just
fishing
never got
is like
into it.
so actually in that vein, what we used to do in Wisconsin, there was one power plant lake, dude. And it was, I don't like right now, I would never do this again because it was the most dangerous thing that I did a whole bunch. And the power plant lake would jack like 55-degree water, the cooling water into the
Yep.
lake.
Yep.
And we would drive 3 hours from where I live to go fish open water. And dude, because the air temp's like 5 degrees, -10, whatever,
Yep.
the whole lake, like from sun up till like dusk, is a fog cloud, dude. And our
Yeah.
dumb asses, and I say that now without any restrictions, would put a 10-foot John boat into this giant fog cloud and go fishing because you could catch smallmouth, you could catch not spots, striper.
Yeah.
They had up there, and it was cool. It was so freaking cool. So absolutely dangerous, but like awesome, dude. But that's pretty much all we would do during the winter once we got sick of ice fishing.
This year has been so bad for ice fishing that I've literally watched guys setting up shanties with open water 30 feet to their right.
Yeah, I don't play that game, dude.
And I'm like, that's why I'm literally thinking about like it's March. So like normally in Vermont, March is like might be able to get out on the water if you're lucky. But the problem is right now my boat's down. I had a motor, so I was fishing the Finger Lakes.
Right.
I went out on Cayuga, fished a couple of the Finger Lakes, had a motor issue, and my boat's been down because my boat I was fishing like the second week of August.
Okay.
So getting my boat into a boat doctor is not going to happen from
Yeah.
that close to Labor Day on. And
Yeah.
I didn't even know what was wrong with it. I ended up like we were talking about YouTubing it and found out that apparently that make and model of motor, they didn't do a real good job of securing the drive shafts, so they have to be like greased because they'll rattle a little
Shut
bit.
up.
So it's like a simple fix, but it's not something I'm not
Yeah,
tearing my
yeah,
lower unit off to
yeah.
do it.
It'll never go back together the same, dude.
It sounds like a cricket. It sounds like I've got like a pack of crickets in my motor, but it only does it over 2,000 RPMs. It's like a weird freaking problem that I can't like quite explain, but basically I would rev it up and it would like, and then it would stop, and then it would start, and it would stop. But it's just like you said, I don't want to be out in the middle of the lake and then have it fail. Like that's just if you've
Especially during
ever owned a boat or been on a boat, you know if they're going to fail, it's going to be when there's 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts and it's going away from the boat ramp and you're fucked. It's going to be when the problem. So I actually came home and fished, actually it's kind of emotional side of it too. I came home and fished from my kayak, and that next day I went out to a lake that I just knew I could catch them. And that's when I caught, I don't know if you probably haven't seen any of my videos, but I literally put up a video where I caught 2 fish on a war pig.
Yeah.
So I caught one on the front and back treble.
Shut up.
Dude, it was the funniest thing ever. And that was another, we were talking about this before the stream. Like that was one of those, like, I was like, I think I have 2 fish on that. Holy shit, I have 2 fish on that. Like it was just like a combination of emotions because my boat was down and I had taken a week off to go fish the Finger Lakes. I had this whole big content plan and this whole big plan to go fish. And
it's heartbreaking.
And it was so funny. So then I literally whipped this thing out and I actually thought I hit the first fish, but I thought I had milfoil on it because it's August. There's a lot of clumps of milfoil in this body of water. And I like popped it up and I was fishing a lipless. So I was like, I just popped it free. And then I was reeling it in, and then all of a sudden I felt another pop. So the fish actually 2 fish hit it at different times too. Like it wasn't like a weird collision. Like I think this fish like saw the other fish hit it,
He's trying to
and
take it away, dude.
He tried to steal it. And then I like get it to shore and I'm holding up this like fucking lipless and I'm like, how the fuck did this happen?
How did you land? But because it's always the big one gets off, dude. It's so
obnoxious. That's what I was shocked about. Like that's what I was like. I was so panicked and I got the net up underneath of them and then I just like took a breath, pulled my phone out, and I'm just like literally I didn't even have them out of the water because I was like so scared they were gonna pop off and I wasn't gonna get the footage. but it was just like that raw emotion of like catching 2 fish. And I mean, they weren't big. It was like a 2-pounder, maybe
Yeah.
a 3-pounder. But the funny part is the guy ended up like, I'm going to be doing tournaments in New Hampshire, and the guy I'm going to be doing fishing tournaments with me, he was behind me.
Right.
And I hadn't met him yet, and he was just sitting there fishing out of his kayak, and he actually came over to check on me.
Yeah.
Because he's like, dude, are you all right? And I'm like, yeah, dude, you won't get it. You won't believe it. He goes, what? And I'm like, look at this shit. And he's like, how the fuck did you do that? And I'm like, I
can't
don't
do it
know.
again, but I did it once, dude.
Yeah. But that's the kind of shit that like fishing like early season, late season, like you get that addiction. And then for up here, done.
Yeah.
So that's why I started making content. Actually helped me because I make like educational stuff. I do green screen shit. So like I'll sit here with a background and be like, okay, we're gonna talk about lipless today. And then I like try to like,
it's just as fun. And this is where like I'm always arguing with myself because I'm like, it's important to have credibility and like to go fish and catch them. But like I've also sort of way back in the day, so I started working for myself many years ago. And the moment I did that, I wasn't making that much money in the first place, but I went from making like okay, like barely survive money to making nothing dude.
Yeah.
And when that happened, like I also, swimsuit girl, I met her and I'm like, I like her. She got a job somewhere and I had to move. So I went and I'm like, I'm going to try working for myself. If it doesn't work, I'll go work at Burger King and do whatever I got to do.
Yep.
And when that happened, I had to make the choice between like, I was spending $150 on a tournament like every weekend and stuff. And I'm like, what do I like? Do I like doing this competitive stuff, tournament stuff? Do I like making videos? Because I got to pick one or the other. I can't do both. And I started doing the videos. And over the years, at first I really stuck with that sort of that fishing out there template. But like I've noticed, like I have enough experience. I don't know everything by any means, and I'm not like amazing tournament guy, but I do have enough experience where I kind of understand some of the things that are happening. And I almost enjoy as much going through, breaking down tackle, thinking about patterns and shooting those kinds of videos as I do getting out on the water. And I noticed even from a viewership, there's a lot of receptivity to that, and there's value. People find value in that. And I like creating value in doing that. So I've been really trying to do more of that in a better way. The other thing I found too is a lot of times I just want to go fishing, right? Like shooting a video, creating a narrative. Sometimes that it comes across as manufactured, and I hate that shit. So one thing that I've done recently is I'm like, how can I achieve these two goals? I want to go fishing. I need to shoot videos. Actually, let me reframe that. I need to go fishing and I need to shoot these videos.
Yep, exactly.
So I've been running a chesty and then that pole that I have in the back of the boat, and I'll just go fish, dude.
Yep.
And what I catch is what I catch. And then I'll figure out based on that, like what's going on, what's happening, and how does that hedge into a pattern, into a concept. And then I'll take it all into the garage and I'll be like, so we're going to talk about what happened like 3 days ago. And I'll have like the fishing content because I can run that as B-roll, but then I can get in depth to the lures, in depth to that. And it's a much more polished finish, still credible, still validated by like experiences on the water, but I'm able to really kind of like delve into things and be really detail oriented. Whereas on the water, I couldn't get that really cool B-roll shot of a lipless, or something like that. So that's been something I've been playing with, but I've enjoyed shooting the talking videos as much because in the end, dude, like this, we're like right now, I could have probably snuck out for like 2 hours to go fishing, but I have as much fun chatting with you, Mike, as I do like getting out there. And not that I would 100% just sit here and bullshit about fishing. I gotta go fishing, but like there's value in that. And in the end, I find too, it's just like the videos where you're watching them and you're like, man, I did that different. In these sort of like experiences where we're talking about fishing, sharing our experiences, you learn, dude. Like you pick things up, like little keywords, little triggers, and you can even do that with yourself when you're talking about baits because you go back and you edit something and you're like, dude, I just said something. Why am I not listening to what the voice in my head just said? So there's a lot of different ways to, skin a squirrel or something like that, skin a cat. So I've really enjoyed doing those talking videos, and I want to do more stuff like that because they're easy to shoot too, in a way, you know. So a volume of content, doing things in a polished manner. It's a lot easier for me to do that in my garage than it is on a boat.
So I literally, you saying that, so I literally have 8 videos. So anybody watching this video is going to get like a preview. I have 8 videos. I'm starting in what I'm calling my R&D. So
Okay,
I've been started pouring plastics using dual molds.
very cool.
So what I'm doing is I'm starting a series on my channel where honestly I just wanted to make molds. I just wanted to make baits for the winter,
Right.
right? So I started like making baits, but I thought about it and I'm like, I want viewers to suggest colors, tell me if they think I should add more pigment or whatever, and then I'm going to go on the water and fish them. But
That's
like you said,
badass,
it works
dude.
out really good because I made the video already. The video's done.
Yeah.
Now all I got to do is just remember to hold up the bait before I cast it, and then it's just B-roll. I don't have to think about or talk while I'm fishing because I can be like, it worked. Look, I caught a fish on it. It's right here. But I don't have to like, because that's the one thing I did learn about it is like I tried to do the same thing last year and I went too far with it where it was like, it's funny because I actually showed in my viewership too. Like I had days where I just went out and I tried to target a certain technique because
Yeah.
that was the video that you were supposed to put out at that time because
Right.
that's what everybody was putting out. And I didn't catch a fish and I was getting frustrated and then it was becoming like this is becoming a job and not fun anymore.
Emotionally taxing, dude.
So then I just started, like you said, what I started doing, and that's something that I'm letting people in on a little behind the curtain deal is sometimes that intro was recorded after we're done fishing.
Yeah.
So sometimes you go out fishing and you go back and you get on shore and you sit in your car and you go, hey guys, today we're going to fish a lipless and we're going to see if we can work it offshore and we're going to yo-yo it. The reason why I say that is because I tried to fish deep divers and they sucked, and I tried to drag a jig and it
Yeah.
sucked, and I figured out the lipless bite, and then now I'm doing an intro to explain what I just got done doing
Yep.
because and that's the thing is people don't that's the one thing that people don't realize is I have terabytes of just raw footage that I
Yep.
save because sometimes I can make a video explaining a technique by just playing back B-roll of me casting and
Yeah.
reeling.
100%.
And that's something that I've been trying to do more of. And that's actually, to be honest, a lot of the people on my lives, like I haven't had very many viewers on this one, but I also poured it to a podcast so people listen to it after, is a lot of people were like, oh, how do you know all this stuff? And I'm like, honestly, YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm like, a lot of the times I just watch guys' videos because I'm bored at work. And sometimes I don't even watch them.
Yeah.
I'm just listening while I'm at work with my phone down. But I hear them say, you know, this is the condition, this is what I'm throwing because of this situation. And then when you get fishing, you're like, oh, this is what Mikey was talking about.
Yeah.
Let me try that bait. And that's what I'm trying to like be for other people. And that's what's cool about this community though, is like a NASCAR driver isn't going to tell you how to tune your engine. A football player isn't going to tell you, you know, how to work out properly. Like, but in bass fishing, like there's guys that you don't want to talk to at the boat ramp because they'll punch you in the face if you ask them anything. But then there's other guys that'll be like I'm that guy that I think sometimes I piss people off because I'll come off the water, especially if I see a kid, and I'll be like, dude, go over right over there on that point. There's
Yeah.
a lily pad patch. Throw a black and blue Senko.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you get like the weirdest looks from people. They're like, why are you telling me this? And it's like, because I
Mhm.
want you to catch fish. Like that's my whole goal. Like is for people to catch fish and learn how to catch fish. Because
Yeah.
and honestly, some people are like, aren't you worried they're gonna steal your fish? And I'm like, if I suck that much that they're stealing my fish, then I need to get better at fishing. Because
Yeah, you
that's
will
my
always
opinion
piss
of it.
people off. I'm a professional at pissing people off. But I mean, yeah, the other thing too is everything in life is transactional, and you got to give something to get something.
Yep.
So like it's a never a one-ended deal, at least in a lasting kind of relationship. So like
Right.
you got to play the game, dude, and that's and you bring more people into the sport. You involve more people, you engage more people. Like it's a process, and a lot of people there's still a lot of traditional kind of legacy style anglers who don't understand that
Right.
it's not a
Right.
perfect system, there's no doubt about it, but that is the system that we're at and the direction that we're going 100%.
It's a weird world too, though, because like for me, it's like I'm gonna be doing tournaments in New Hampshire, kayak tournaments. It's a little Slay Nation trail. It's not if there's Slay Nation in Florida. I don't know if you've seen those guys around or not, but so it's like it's very like small, like 15, 20 boat kayak. The one
Okay.
I'm doing is actually a small vessel series, so you can actually use like small John boat, anything 20 feet and under, but trolling motors only, no gas
Okay.
motors.
That's kind of cool.
And so like I'm not going to give you my coordinates and my waypoints. And I may not, like, if I pre-fish a tournament and I'm going to put the video up before the tournament, I'm not going to put my pre-fishing video up a week before the tournament because I'm
Right.
somebody that
You're
catches
gonna burn yourself,
and
dude.
burn myself. But at the same time, like, I also sometimes give too much information away because, especially with kids, like, that's my thing is like when I see kids on the bank, there's been times where literally I saw a kid one day like casting off the shore platform, and I walked over to him and I'm like, hey, do you know how to wacky rig? And he goes, no. And I'm like, okay, here, take this bait, put it on the hook this way, and cast over that way. And he pulled out like a little rock bass before I left, and he kind
That's
of like looked
awesome.
back at me. To me, that's catching a 10-pounder. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like that's just as good for me to like. I handed him like a half of a pack of leftover like black blue yum dingers.
Right.
Cost me $3, but that kid is probably going to be hooked on fishing now because he caught something
Oh yeah,
on
it's
a
something
simple
pulled
technique.
on the dangle, dude. He's all about it.
So
And he'll be back to that point casting away. No, that's good stuff, dude. You bring more
that's,
people in, man.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's the other thing about this sport that's weird is anybody that heard I was bringing you on probably thought we were going to be talking high tech fishing techniques the whole time and not content creation the entire video. But
you got to mix it up. Mix it.
yeah, absolutely. So and I actually have
There's so
literally
many
another
other
live stream 8.
dimensions to that. I think that's what people and you know though it shows though because all the vlogging content like people are voyeurs.
Yep.
They're interested in more than just that process of catching fish. If it was just the catch and fish thing, I'd have 1 million views, dude. You know, on one video. But like,
Yep.
there's a lot more into it, like the lifestyle, the emotions, the process. You know,
Yep.
like there's so many different, and that's what's cool too with the content thing. And you kind of mentioned it earlier. You know, like, so for instance, I just spent an hour and a half in my boat because everything is a mess from Florida. I like have nothing ready and I have very limited time. So I need to make sure that I have the infrastructure so that when I have time,
Yep.
all I have to do is hook up the
Go.
boat and go so I can
Yep.
shoot something. So I just spent an hour and a half doing that and, you know, tied a bunch of polymer knots, tied up some stick baits, tied up some swim baits, threw on the chatterbait, took the chatterbait trailer, and you know how you take a boot tail and you cut it off? I think Tactical Bassin did it many years ago, whatever, but you
Yep.
cut off the boot tail. So all this little snivelly shit, like I just did thinking
Yep.
nothing about it. The reality is, and like we talked about with baselines, there's all these different baselines of viewership or of experience when it comes to fishing. And like all that stuff I just did was video. And I'm an idiot for not shooting half of it. So like there's so many different angles to content that are based on your perspective that I think especially guys like us who get a little more like granular and get into it or a little more extreme with it, we forget. But there's a huge amount of opportunities for any content creator and even just somebody who wants to have a good time and make some videos to film tying up a knot, you know, snelling something, freaking, you know, what hook do I need to throw a stupid Texas rig one? You know, like there's so many different angles. The Guggen Squad, you know, and like those guys who really blew things up some years ago really showed that because they showed a lot of the basics and a lot of the sort of like going over the threshold stuff that seems so simple and second nature to a lot of us, but in reality, there's a huge audience for that.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny. So what I do with mine, just like I don't know if it's like, I actually don't cut them completely off. I cut them in a triangle.
What's that?
The boot tails.
Oh, that's kind of cool too.
So it still gets a little bit, it catches a little bit of water and it still wiggles,
right?
But it doesn't draft water and pull it away from the blade. So I actually cut like, I take like that heart shape and V it up.
That's kind of cool, dude. See, the reason I cut them off is twofold. One, when the water's pretty warm, but it's dropping now. I think you guys are getting like the snow and stuff. We're not getting the snow, but it went from like, hey, this is mid-spring to, hey, we're going to go back to late winter for the next 3 weeks. And when that happens, like it's more about chattery, I guess you could say, than water displacement. And then the other thing that happens is these fish already moved up. And if you ever move down south, you'll find the weirdest part. There's always some deep fish, but they're hard to find and hard to catch. But these fish, it can be like 35 degrees out and the water temp's 40, and dude, they're in that much water. They're like skinny, dude. And so I actually run these really light chatterbaits, like 3/8 and a quarter, and I'll slow roll them, and I don't want them to rise too much, and any kind of like boot on it brings it up to so like I'll just cut the tail off and I can slow roll that thing, and dude, it barely freaking moves, and all it's doing is that, and not displacing the water and creating a bunch of drag where you feel like you have to move it.
It's funny because that's the only way I'll fish a fluke. A lot of times I'll throw a fluke on it, like a smaller fluke junior. I'll throw those on a chatterbait, so you get that little whip.
Yeah,
but it doesn't create the resistance.
That's
like
the OG spunk shad right there. Right, before that came out, we would always like flukes are the deal, dude. And everybody thinks you gotta add all this stuff. And the reality is the best action from a chatterbait is what you get from the chatterbait. And adding all that other shenanigans, in my opinion, it only takes away from what you're doing. Unless you're on some like shallow brim deal or something, like literally you don't want flappers. Maybe the boot tail sometimes, but less is more when it comes to that chatter donker.
Yeah, a lot of times it's like you said, it's more of a profile. It just makes it bigger. Yeah, so you are going to get probably a bigger bite because the little ones aren't going to hit it as hard. But that's the other thing that's always weird to me is like I see you guys throw like the big swim baits and stuff. I haven't gotten into that world yet. Not even because I don't believe in it, but because financially I'm not willing to spend the money on something that I'm going to cry if I lose.
I'm not big into it. I mean, I've always thrown like the plastic ones, the soft plastic ones. But it's an art and it's a commitment. Yep. So one thing I've actually done this year is there's more and more opportunities for quote unquote budget, but not like crazy Chinese junk. Yep. And actually one that I'll throw out to you that I've bought a few and been highly disappointed. The standard is the River to Sea. It's a very entry level, decent price, but there's one called the Sneaky Pete that, dude, the action on it is like $50 or something from Tackle Warehouse, $59. So pricey, but not like, oh my God, Yeah. Right. And dude, the action on it is absolutely stupid. The other thing that I don't think a lot of people know about them baits, at least the way I use them. I know some guys go out and they throw them and that's what they catch fish on and they're very committed to it. I've found that they're a really big tool, especially with these shallow sort of spawning or staging fish, to know what's on a flat. Like one of my really eye-opening experiences, I got a buddy down here named Jacob Wall, and he actually just made it to the Bass Pro Tour, the MLF BPT Tour. He's from Oregon, but he moved to Guntersville. The nicest, coolest, most down-to-earth kid you ever met. And we went out, and I was on a Florida bite, sight fishing. So I was like burning water, looking for fish on beds. And we got on this clay point, dude. It was this giant flat point. And I had like a 4-pounder and a 3-pounder. And I think the 3-pounder was a male. And then there were some other 2-pounders. But like there was definitely like fish there, a lot that you could see. And he's like, hold my beer, watch this. I'm like, what are you going to get up to, Jacob? So he goes in this box. He brought like 2 boxes, dude. And he whips out this, I don't know if it was a Roman made or it's some crazy expensive swim bait that's like probably the size of my arm. And I'm like, dude, we're either going to make the most epic viral video or like you're going to get a great arm workout. Like this is like, dude, just hold on. And he got that thing out. And this basically, we get a lot of grass that's left over from the year before. It'll die back, but it's still left there. And there'll be these hard open spots. It's a lot what you guys see probably maybe mid to late spring. Like something in there. And so he ran that thing through, and dude, the water gin clear. I can see the bait. We're in 2 foot of water, no water whatsoever. And dude, this spawning flat where I saw like 4 or 5 fish turned into a school of there was 4-pounders, there was a 5-pounder, there was some 3-pounder. They all just came out to look. None of them actually ate the bait, but it was really revealing in the sense of like they're so curious and they're so interested in what's happening in your environment, because we're power pulled down, we were real sneaky about it, but it was eye-opening because it was such a tool, like not even to catch fish, but to like, you can't use a depth finder that shallow, and that you can throw that bait out and be like, dude, there's like freaking 30 fish on this flat. We're going to move out of here and come back in 2 hours. And I'm going to power pull 25 yards out that way. And we're going to bomb baits into here. So it's not always just like searching for that one mega bite on them, sometimes they can be used as a tool to sort of understand what's happening, because those fish don't see it. They see it more now, but they don't see it enough to make them not curious about those kinds of baits.
I think that's the thing I've learned too is like I always wondered like I kind of got the idea, but they're always like everybody says, and even you say like putting together the puzzle like when you're fishing. And sometimes what you don't realize when you watch a video of a guy catching fish is when they say pattern, they don't necessarily even mean like I'm always throwing a square bill. Sometimes you throw a chatterbait in and then follow it up with a swim bait
Yeah.
because it's a different profile. Like sometimes you throw a bait to draw the fish in that makes a noise and then fish something else behind it, and that's the actual pattern. Is sometimes I got to throw this and follow it with this because that's what drew the fish in, and then when they see my bait they hit it, whereas if I didn't throw that they aren't going to come in to find it.
Yeah,
Like you said, bass are weird. Like
dude, like a lot of times, like because pattern is very cliche with like the bait. Like sometimes it, and this is cliche too, but it's like a creek channel next to a point, you know. But you got to run freaking 20 of them to find the 4 that are good, and then you have your bait sequence. You know, you start with this, and then you go to that. It's funny because down in those Florida lakes and on the ledges too, I've actually found with all the pressure that they get, that bait sequence where we talk about like a pattern or like how you fish them, it's sort of flipped on its head. Whereas it used to be throw this big freaking grinding crankbait, obnoxious, and like get them to fire up, and then you catch them on a worm later, you know, like straight up Bassmaster magazine. Well, dude, that crankbait scares them the hell away. Like, so you sort of like coax them in on the, like a net or a worm, you get them like comfortable, you catch a few, they get fired up. And then right when you've kind of like beat them up with like the finessey stuff and got them rolling, then it's like, dude, I'm going to go for broke. I'm going to throw this bait 10 times. I might catch 2 fish. They're going to be good. And then I'm GTFOing, dude, you know? So it's amazing how like, it's the word I use always is nuance, because fishing is so much nuance. Like I've said before, like I'm all right at bass fishing. I'm not amazing. I have fished with some guys who have that stupid freaking angel's touch where literally they pick up a bait and catch fish. And it blows my mind how you can literally be throwing the exact same thing as somebody, dude, and they're smoking them. And like you will watch every detail of what they do, and there's some little thing that you're missing, some little thing. You sometimes you can identify it. Hopefully, sometimes you just can't pick up on it. But it literally, they can throw the exact same thing and catch them. It's all these little tiny minute details.
Something I say on my channel a lot is a lot of times, honestly, your best bait is confidence.
Dude, that's 100%.
It really is. Like I've literally been fishing with my dad and literally rigged his pole for him.
Yeah.
Tied his leader. Hooked his hook. Like literally I've hooked a swim bait on a fucking hook, tied it to his pole. He's using the same rod reel line as me. And I'm like, cast into that tree and he won't catch a fish. And then I'm like, watch. And he's like, how did you do that? And I'm like, because I know there's a fish there.
Yeah.
But I realize the longer I do it that's because I know there's a fish there. There's something, like you said, there's some weird juju I'm sending down the line because I'm confident in that bait. That because there's sometimes like it's funny because like my dad one time I told him that because one of the biggest things I do around here because we have so much grass is I fish a lot of like the 3.8 Kitech style boot-tail swim baits with the belly weighted hook. I use a twist lock. Texas rig them so that I don't have to. I don't even actually Texas rig them. I just like stick it in that channel on the back of the Kitech so I don't get caught up in the weeds. And I'll fish those like all year long. And I was telling my dad about that. I was like, yeah, I just use those, use this color, and we'll go catch fish. And he used a tube head and stuck a Kitech up to the tube, the lead, and he was slamming fish. He's like, I thought that's what you meant. And I was like, I mean,
keep on believing, baby. Keep on believing.
And that was what it was. He didn't even know he was doing it wrong, but he outfished me that day on the right setup.
Yeah.
And it was just because he had the confidence that I gave him by telling him we're going to catch fish on this bait, rigged the entirely wrong thing, but he was catching fish in the same spots that I wasn't. And a lot of times it's just, and that's why actually content creation is kind of, to bring it back, has saved me, because there's some days where I spin out and I'm not catching fish and I'm like, I got to make a video. So I stop and I'm like, okay, what can I record?
Yeah.
And I stop and I record something and then I go, maybe I should try frog. Like, I haven't tried a frog yet. Like, you kind of like stop and reset your brain, and then you go
Yeah.
back and try something different, because that's the one of the things. I can't remember who, and like I said, I've been trying to find who. If anybody finds this video, I've quoted this a few times. Like, one of the guys I was watching on YouTube was saying, like, unlike football or baseball, like, our ball is alive.
Yeah.
So our ball adapts to us as well as us adapting to it.
Yep.
So you're never going to learn everything about bass fishing. There isn't a pro alive that can guarantee a fish on every technique in every situation. It doesn't happen,
Yeah.
because the
It's dynamic.
situation is different every
Yeah.
time.
It changes. It's dynamic, dude.
And
Yeah,
that's
no,
what I've
that's
learned.
100% true. And that, what was what you were talking about? I call it the art of the sandwich, dude. So I don't eat lunch when I'm fishing. Like, I'll eat a protein bar or whatever. But I have noticed that the guys who bring like a little ham sandwich and they literally sit down ritualistically and do that, I think they catch more fish because they pause. It's kind of like that drive home. Like, you're always better the next day after a drive home when you've had a shit day than you are like if you just try to change on the fly. At least that's the way my mentality works. That's why these guys who fish the tournaments and are so malleable and adaptable. That's their strength. It's the confidence and that adaptability, that ability to change on a dime. But like that sandwich trick, dude, like if you do suck at fishing, the best thing to do is bring a sandwich. Because you'll sit down, you'll reset, something might pop in your head. You're sitting there dicking around, dude. You look around, and you're like, man, there's a bunch of pads over there. I've been fishing this deep grass for freaking 3 hours with no results. Like, let me go dangle over and try that. But
Maybe it's call my wife, but yeah, same idea. Like, sometimes I literally will call my wife for no reason, have nothing to talk about. I'm just like sucking really bad, and I'll call her, and she'll be like, "You didn't catch nothing, huh?" And I'm like, "No, I'm sucking." And then I'll just like, "What are we gonna have for dinner?" And the conversation's always, "What are we gonna have for dinner? What do you want to do when I get home?" And then all of a sudden, like, I actually want to make a montage of it, because I was watching through my videos, because it's literally like a whole montage of, "Hold on, got a fish on," like, because you just get out of your head and you just start throwing.
That's the trick. Getting out of your head, dude. Because that's where I'm my own worst enemy, dude. It's kind of like this. This is gonna sound deep, but like the more you know, the less you know, and that's one thing I've struggled with. Because like I know a lot of stuff, and like to a fault that's actually problematic. Because sometimes being simpler and just doing your thing is better, dude. And like I don't know, like that resetting and getting out of your head. One of the best tournament finishes I ever had, because I'm a head case, dude. Like that's why I'm not very good at tournament fishing. I'm not confident in that regard, and I do get spun out and overthink things instead of just settling in it and being like, hey, if it goes, it goes. If it don't, it don't. Maybe when I get older, I'll be like that. But one of the best finishes I ever had, I got second in a BFL down on Okeechobee, and I was in a tin boat for practice, but I borrowed a really good buddy of mine, Tim Finley, borrowed me his fiberglass boat because it was going to blow, and it just like two people in my tin boat was, whatever. You know the deal, dude. It gets packed, like all the gear and stuff, live wells. So I borrow his boat, and he's got an Evinrude with an old battery in it, dude. And I borrowed it for one day of practice beforehand, and it wouldn't start for like 2 hours. And it was the battery, like, was a bad battery, whatever. So I ended up jumping in. It worked. It was 30 degrees the next day in Florida. And of course, like, it didn't start because there's no freaking cranking power going through. So I literally spent 3.5 hours, I think, at the boat ramp trying to get this thing started. And finally I asked the tournament director if I could go get my truck and jump it. Like, so I drove my truck into the boat ramp, ran cables from the hood of the truck down to the boat, and I jumped in and got it going. Thank God my fish that I had were like 3 miles away. We ran over there, left the motor running for a whole bunch of time. And I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'd never do this now, but literally all that stress, all that bullshit and dealing with it, it beat me up so much that by the time I actually got to fish, like I gave no fucks. Like, regard my field of fucks, I have no more left to give, dude. Like, it was done. And in that process, it really freed me up to focus on what I was doing. And dude, it was all mat flipping, and I picked that apart like a freaking champion. I was one bite away from winning that deal. And it was a small adjustment and I could have won it, but it doesn't matter. The process was so freed up because I've been so overwhelmed. You hit that breaking point, you break, and it all just washes away, dude. And when you can get into that mindset and not do it because your boat won't start, if you can do that on a sort of mental trigger where you can train yourself to do that, you are an unstoppable creature, not just in fishing, but in business, in creation, in just about anything that you do, dude, because you can zone it, the zone. You can get in that zone and you can focus on exactly what's in front of you instead of all this tertiary crap that's taking away your attention.
So some of the best places that I fish, and actually some of the best content that I make, is breaking down new water. And I think it's because of exactly what you just said. There's a place near me. It's a small pond, and actually I had another interaction, like a person interaction, that my 100 subscriber YouTube channel, this guy on a dock. I had the guy on the dock situation. He sees me talking to myself, going over, oh, these are bass beds, and this is where they make a bed, and trying to get the footage of the stuff for the water. And the guy's like, you people are going to ruin this lake. And I'm like, why? And he's like, because you're going to tell them where you are. I'm like, first of all, I didn't tell them where I am. Second of all, if they can actually look at my video footage and identify this place, they fucking been here.
Yeah.
Because this is a 100-acre pond.
Yeah.
In the middle of Vermont. But like, I started fishing new places because I would get pissed off because out of that boat ramp, I can tell you right now, you go out of the ramp, you go left, there's a lily pad patch, and there's a beaver dam, and you catch a 3-pounder. Right. Every fucking time you go there with a jig, every time. And I had a day where I went there, just fish. No, not doing an online tournament, not doing anything, just fishing. And I left there pissed off, and I had to check myself in my truck because I'm like, you're fucking angry because the fish didn't follow the rules.
Yeah.
And that's when I started like kind of checking myself, like you said, because when you know how a lake should break down and what should work, and it doesn't work, you keep beating yourself down trying to force something that's just not going to happen, because at the end of the day, the bass don't know what the rule book is. They don't know that they're supposed to bite on that bait. So that's why I think I actually feel like I've been back and forth on this New Hampshire tournament. Never fished in New Hampshire in my life, but I'm almost thinking like I might not pre-fish some of the lakes because I feel like I'm going to be better at being able to just change gears easier in that tournament mode, because I'm not going to be like, well, I know there's fish here because I caught fish here last time.
100%. I'm with you there. Personally, I can say that I'm better when I go impromptu and just send it. Maybe not catching a mega bag, but that emotional swing aspect, and following those cues that you're talking about, you're definitely more open to it without that preconceived or that history kind of aspect. When you just go out there, because in the end, we know what we're doing. Some of us know a little bit better than others. Some of us don't know dick. But in the end, there's some general principles that you can sort of take to heart, and when you apply them, they work.
It's my version of Bog.
Oh, nice. Been neglected too long.
Yeah, she's I think 6 months old. This is a cane course.
Oh, really? She's
gonna be big.
Yeah, she's gonna be big, dude.
Yeah. She's the pup. I used to call her not my puppy because I actually didn't want another dog.
Right.
I have a pit bull boxer that's older.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of feel guilty leaving all day. Like, my wife's now going to be working weekends, so now I have to probably gonna have to bring her on the boat with me.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily want another dog, but unfortunately, because I didn't want another dog, that's when imprinted on me, and now I have another dog. And so it's kind of one of those deals. But
you can't go wrong with more dogs, dude. I actually almost got another dog when I was in Florida, dude. I found.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do you know what a tricolor pit is?
Yep.
Yeah, so they're kind of new and cool, but I'm not paying $1,200, $2,500 for some breeded ass dog, So the dog I got came from a rescue. The red nose I had before him, it wasn't a rescue, but it's a long story, but basically someone couldn't have the dog and the dog was going to go away. And I'm like, that dog ain't going away.
Gotcha.
So they had a freaking tricolor dude at the dog pound, and it was cool. A complete opposite personality of Bog, like did not care about anything. Pit bulls, and that it's not a breed, but you know how that works. Those kind of dogs, when you put two males in a room, like 99% of the time, they're going to kill each other. That's just a
Yep.
reality. And
How they are,
we
yeah.
had them mixed, dude. And this dog, my dog, Bog, was more intent on like, oh, I want to meet you. I want to do things.
Yep.
And this dog is like, dude, bro, I get it. There's a bush there. There's a tree there.
That's funny.
It's so cool. And it was kind of sad. It wasn't meant to be, but I had work to do for 4 days, and I'm like, I can't take this dog and put it on my mom and dad for the days I'm down here because that's not fair. And dude, that dog was gone in friggin' 24 hours. But I'll get another one at some point. It might not be as cool as that one, but
yeah, it's funny how like pit bulls get a rap, man, and it's like, to be honest, they're usually the most affectionate dog on the planet. Like in my experience, like I've been around a lot of them, and it's like the problem with them is that they're so attached.
Yeah,
I think that's why they get a bad rap, because you're their person and they will destroy anyone that tries to hurt you. But at the same time, they're more likely to cuddle you to death than they are to actually tear you apart.
That's true. The ones you see, I think the reality is that it's funny because with maybe even people too, like some of the strongest people are the weakest people. Some of the most kind people are also the meanest. And that is, I'll be fully honest, like those like pits are dangerous. Like they can get, when they're not managed correctly with like owner, like they need to know who's dominant, who's in control. You need to be forceful about that. And like there are some of them that are bad. And the reality is, so like them little dogs, they bite people a lot, dude. I've been bit by more little dogs than big dogs in my entire life, and they're vicious. But the reality is that little dog can bite you 20 times and it's going to bleed and be annoying, but it ain't going to kill you. That pit or somebody's pit that clicks,
lose a hand.
You're done, dude. Yeah. So like that's where it. But I'm with you. Like they do get a bad rap. I understand the people that are very tentative against them, but I've always been, and this is actually something, a shortcoming too. I should be a better talker and like talking things up, but I always like to show things through practice and show things in action. So what's nice is I love my dog, and my dog is perfect for me, and my red nose was perfect for me before, but I can take him to a ramp. This dog is literally, there is no viciousness. He's not even like owner oriented. I had him get in somebody else's truck. He wanted to go.
Oh, really?
Dude. I'm like, I feed you, dude, and you're literally trying to leave with some other dude. But what's cool is you get to those boat ramps and there's no concern with him mingling with kids and stuff like that. So it's cool to have those interactions because he's very approachable, and it's sort of my little part to the pit bull freaking better society to kind of have people mingle with him because he loves it, dude. He's a social butterfly.
Yeah, mine was from North Carolina, and it was literally a sight unseen rescue deal. So
really,
kill shelter in North Carolina. I'd had good experiences with. Up here, there's not a lot of dog breeding. There is, but there isn't. A lot of the dog breeding is like labs, and then there's a lot of like bear hunting dogs and like trained dogs and stuff like that.
Okay.
So there's like dogs that they train for bear hunting. There's dogs for duck hunting. There's more the redneck beagle dog style. But there's a lot of rescues that are actually out of Vermont that will go to like kill shelters. And basically what they do, because they're underfunded, is you basically like buy a dog and hope. It's kind of weird, but like you basically pay money, they go down and they literally load up like a big fucking van with a bunch of crates, and they just stack these dogs, as many as they can get in this van, and drive them to you. So the dog goes from kill shelter to new parents in that day, like within like 16-hour drive. They don't even stop because they don't know how the dogs are going to react. So they literally are just like peeing on each other all the way up. So it's like the most traumatizing thing, but at the same time, they don't want to like try to take all these dogs out of crates and figure out how to get them back in after putting them in there. So like my dog came to me with a broken, the shelter had diagnosed as muscle atrophy.
Really?
So we were exercising a broken leg because we thought that we were supposed to like get her. So then when we brought her for her first round of shots at the vet, they're like, "When did she break her leg?" And we're like, "What?"
Oh my God.
So yeah, and that's the thing is like I've had a lot of experiences with animals in general, and I also think a lot of it has to do with personality too.
Yeah, 100%.
Because if I've literally gone up to like wild horses and pet them,
I
no
hate
problem.
horses, dude.
And
They're
like I've
mean.
been around a lot of different animals. I've been around dogs that people that dog will bite you, and I've been like,
Yeah,
really? Like I think sometimes your how you approach an animal sometimes has a lot to do with how
100%.
they're.
Yeah, like the 12-year-old freaking running at the dog and like sticking their face. Yeah, that's yeah. The outcome isn't going to be very good. That's why Bog is nice though, because literally, like, you could pick him up, throw him upside down, and like sit on him, and he'd be like, "Oh, this is wonderful. It's very
Yep.
good to be your friend now." So
It's funny watching him on video too because like you probably don't even realize it because you're so used to it, but like you'll see him. He gets up on hook set.
oh yeah, he knows, dude.
Like he knows what a hook set is. Like he knows
Yeah,
the difference between popping out of grass and actually hook set because you'll watch him and it's like you're hook set and when you go for that reel, he's at attention and he's
yeah.
watching. Like you could almost put a camera on his back and he'd be your best cameraman at that point because
So I
he's going to be
tried to
like,
do that actually.
"Did you? That's
Yeah,
funny." Yeah.
what's kind of interesting about that, and he's not the best listener. Like that dog I was telling you about before, he was more food centric, so I could have trained him really well.
Right.
Bog is trained to the point that he can be trained because he's not super food centric. But I will give him credit. What's interesting when I first got him, he had no interest in fishing. He had no interest in the boat. He was scared shitless to be in the truck or the boat. He would just shake. And what happened is, and it's probably like modeling behavior or something like that. Obviously, he likes me enough, so he must see my reaction and interaction. And after a period of time, he sort of was conditioned to
Like
the fact that,
emulating it.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I get excited by that because when I first brought him on the boat, I would catch a fish and he's lazy, dude. That's what guys don't see a lot. That dude just sunbays and lays down and sleeps, and he's really kind of not active. But no, the girl's cats. No, interrupting. But in any case, that behavior was something that happened over a period of about a year and a half, and all of a sudden he was tuned into freaking hook sets. And yeah, I watch the videos and I see him pop up when I like get a worm bite and stuff, and I'm like, holy shit, this dog is like more engaged than he really appears to be, dude.
Honestly, it's like it's funny to watch because like you'll see him pop up and his tail will start going
Oh yeah,
while you're reeling, and then like he's even gotten to the point where he like knows when you're gonna boat flip. Like
oh yeah,
he's positioned ready, and then he
right.
sees you start to lift, and he's
Yeah.
coming in.
I don't know if you saw that short that I put up, but I didn't notice it because I don't run the live wells. The only time I run my live wells is if I got a big one and I put them in the well so I can get the camera out. So we were down in Florida and we caught a lot of bigs. And I noticed it maybe like a year ago or something, but I turned that well on and that joker sits in the back of the boat and stares at my live well because he hears the pump going. He thinks there's a fish in
He
there.
thinks there's fish
So
in there.
yeah, dude. So I went and I didn't have the well on and he's just hanging out. I turned that joker on. He's up and looking at the well, dude. And I'm like, there's no fish in there. But so I open it and he gets all down in there. I'm like, holy shit, dude, you know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
They learn.
weird. What's that?
They learn. That's what it is. It's all
They
behavior.
learn,
Yeah.
and I think the pits too. I don't know if it's like viciousness or whatever, but like I had a red nose before him, and he did the exact same thing. Dude, he would bite the fish a little more. I had to be a little more careful because he would get on his hind legs and he'd snap at them. But he was the same way with the hook sets. If you go way, way back in the videos, so like 2014, 2012, I bring him out with me and we did a lot of flipping. And that joker knew he'd be laying there on the deck, dude, and he would pop up the moment freaking I went to set the hook, or I'd get all like focused. And they're really in tune with it. They're bass pointers,
Yep. That's funny. So one of the guys has jumped in and he says he's been watching your content since the tracker with no carpet. So if that gives you any perspective of
fall through to the floor and all that. Yeah,
that is funny. But yeah, we're getting up on an hour and 30 minutes. I didn't even think we were talking that long. So
yeah.
I do want to say if you decide to come fish some northern waters, we should definitely hook up and go out and
I'd be totally done. So you talked about your deep-seated dreams that will maybe never happen. I also hold dreams like that. And one of the things that I'm hoping is I have been focusing on trying to grow the YouTube and maybe putting a little more of a, not commercializing it, but I put a lot of work in it over the years and I'd like to get something out of it. So not just for me, but so I can do more of that kind of work. And if that process works out over the next few years, I would like to turn to do more of the videos and get on the road more and
Right.
really kind of interact and shoot videos with people who are, I love like the regional local stuff, dude.
Yeah.
Like guys like that, I consider myself a guy like that. I think they know more about their area, more about the experience of their area, that like they can share more. It has more value for the other people who are in that area, you know.
Yep.
And I'd like to sort of get on the road and do some of that stuff. But you know, just like anything else, the reality is it's all financial. So
Yeah.
like,
It's
that's the game
expensive.
we got to play.
It's not
Speaking
cheap
of
to
that,
travel a boat
I'm
out.
gonna have to check out on you because I'm getting a work call that I need to take.
Nope, you're all good. So
Oh,
guys, check out Mikey's channel. I'm gonna put some links down in there. I will probably have him on again, so I'm gonna let him go catch that call. But thanks guys for sticking along with us for an hour and a half. So
well, dude, I appreciate you having me on. It's been great chatting, dude. I love these kind of interactions, man. It's interesting too that we had some of the same concepts with shooting content and making it more efficient. And I would have never like thought that. Like you kind of gave me some insights on that. And that's why I love these kinds of conversations. You take away a lot more than I think what you put in the reality. So it's always good.
biggest cheat code I ever learned was actually stop the video after you catch a fish.
That dude, huge. That's freaking that's bass fishing go the GoPro 101 right
Yep.
there, dude.
Or you say something at the end of the video like, I did some talking, so use this section so that all you gotta
Yep,
watch is the last 30 seconds.
exactly.
Because otherwise I gotta watch 12 hours of footage to figure out if I caught a fish or not.
Nobody got time for that, dude.
So, but yeah, I appreciate you coming on. I will definitely. You gave me your cell phone number. That was a mistake because I'm probably going to be texting
Man,
you all
blow
the
me
time.
up, dude. Hit me up. Freaking just don't post it all over freaking Reddit and
Oh no,
Pornhub. So.
I'm not giving that information up. It's like my waypoints, man. I'm gonna tap into that resource.
Well, 10-4, dude. I enjoyed it. We'll do it again soon. Have some fun with Alex when you get him on, all right?
Absolutely. All right, I'm ending this now.